Alright, welcome to this video. I'm going to show you how to create a React TypeScript memory game in this one. And as you can see here, when I click, you can flip those cards. And yeah, I instantly got a pair here. So that's working. That's great. So you can flip those cards. And yeah, I guess I was a bit of in luck there because I got two pairs. Alright, yeah, you know how a memory game works, hopefully. And nothing more to say. Just let's get started, as always. Before you start this tutorial, make sure that you download the starter files that I provided for you in a link below this video. And then you go inside of a folder that says Start Here. The other folder is the finished project. So not that one, it should be that one that's marked with Start Here. And then we type npm run dev. This is a Vite installation that I predefined for us. All right, and that will start up the dev environment at localhost 3000. And you should have something like this. It should say start here and you're good to go. So let's start off. We go inside of the code and I can just briefly talk about what I provided for you here. This is a TypeScript setup in Vite. And I provided you with a file that's called utils.ts. And this is essentially just a small function to shuffle an array. So that's what I provided for you in the utils.ts file. Then we have the main file, that's the start file, nothing to do there. And then we have the app.tsx. So I provided some styles here. That's the grid for the cards, the memory cards. So what I've done here is that I create a responsive grid with this little one-liner here. That's CSS grid. And I have a nice little grid gap, so we have a little bit of space between them. And then I have an IMG folder. These ones should be free to use because I have collected them from Unsplash. And then I have a components folder, and the only stuff there is a cards folder that has some styles for the cards. So what I've done here is, and I'm going to show you this later, we have some props here that's called flipped. So if the card is flipped or not, we're going to make some transform on the CSS here. You can see here we have the transform. Either it's rotated by 0 degrees or we rotate it by 180 degrees. And that's the front image, and the back image, if it's flipped, it's going to be rotated by 180 degrees. Otherwise, it's rotated by 360 degrees. And that's how we achieve that little nice effect when you click on the card and it looks like it rotates and show you the backside of the card. We also have to play a little bit with the Z index here, but I pre-made this for you so we don't have to think about styling in this one. So let's start off inside of the src folder and create a new file that's called setup.ts. We need to do some setup for our cards before we can continue on here. So the first thing I'm going to do is to actually import these images here from this IMG folder. There are more sophisticated ways of imports, a little bit more dynamic, so you don't have to import every individual image each. But I won't go there in this tutorial because it's a little bit more advanced to do that. So I'm going to import them simply like this. Import card 1 from ./img/card1.jpg. So that's the first card. We can copy this one here and paste it in 7 times. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then we change these ones here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And also these ones here. So that's the front side of the cards. And then we have the card back. So we import card back from ./img/ and I have a file that's called card_back.jpg. So that's all the images that we need. Then I'm going to put all these images in its own array so that we easily can create a game board with these images. Put the images in an array, const cards, and these ones are going to be of a specific type. So we have to create the types for these cards also. And we can export it, export type, card type equal, and it's going to be an object that has a lot of properties in it. So we have the ID, it's going to be string in this case. Flipped is going to be a boolean if the card is flipped or not. So boolean. We have the back image, and that's going to be a string with the URL to the image. And the same goes for the front image. These are all named in camel casing. String. We have a clickable. That's going to be a boolean. And we have the matching card ID. That's going to be a string. So these are the properties that we need in our card object. The cards is going to be of the type card type. And it's an array. We specify it as an array, and it's going to equal an array. And we have the card 1, card 2, card 3, card 4, card 5, card 6, card 7, and card 8. Yeah, and of course, these are not the cards that we create. These are only the strings, so it shouldn't be of the type card type here. It should be of type string. We are going to create our cards now, and we create a function for that we export so we can use it in another file. So export const, we call it create board, camel casing. It's going to be an arrow function in this case. You can use a regular function if you want. And here we can have the return type of a card type array. So that's the type that we created up here, and we use it as a return type on this function. And we can make an implicit return on this one. And we have to think about this because this is a memory game. So we have to have a pair of each image, meaning that we will have 2 of each image. So we can create an array where we spread out the cards one time and then we spread them out again. And that would give us 2 of each image. And then we map through the cards. We have the card and we have the iterator. And I make an implicit return here. So I have to have parentheses as it's going to be an object that I return for each element. So I have a parenthesis and then the curly brackets. And then we can create our cards. So we have the ID and that's going to be a string. So I have a backtick, card, then I have a $, and I use the iterator here to create the card ID. So it's basically going to be a string where we have the card and then the number of the card. Flipped, it's going to be set to false first. Back image, it's going to be the card back. The front image is going to be the card that we're iterating through. We have a clickable property that's going to be true if we can click the card or not. And then we have the matching card. And this one is going to be a nice little turner operator here because I'm going to decide if the iterator is less than the cards.length. Then I create a template literal again. We're going to set the card ID to card $I plus card.length. Like this. Then I have the colon, and I'm going to have the other case here, and that's another template literal where we create the card ID, $, curly brackets. I have the iterator minus cards.length. It should say cards here, not card, cards.length. And I have to end it with a backtick. Something like that. Do some auto formatting, and it complains here now, and that's because, yeah, I have misspelled this one. It should be matching card ID, and now it works. So this one is everything we need in the setup files. We import all the images here. We create the type for each card. I put the images in an array so that we can loop through it here and create the cardboard. I spread them out 2 times here because we want 2 of each card. So that means that we have all the cards here with the matching cards. And then we're going to use this shuffle array in the utils.ts to shuffle the array that we just created. All right, that's everything we need for now. So let's go inside of the app.tsx file and we can see if we have a board. We can mark it with setup, import, create board from /setup. We can do some console logging here. Console log, create board, and I have to call this one, so I have parentheses. Save it, and I go back to the application. Let's see here. Yeah, I haven't started it. I have to type in npm run dev, start it up. So here's the array. You can see that we have all the cards here. So for example, the card 0, and it's going to have a matching card of card 8. And we have the card 1, going to have a matching card of card 9, and so on. So we always have the matching card ID for each of these ones. And if you didn't want to create this as a string, you could of course only use the numbers here also. That would also be possible. We have the game board and we can start building this game. We're going to also import some more stuff here. We're going to import the shuffle array from ./utils. We need the card type that we created. So I mark it with types and import card type from ./setup. And we already have the styles imported for us here. That's the styles for the grid. So I use the grid down here in the JSX. I think that's everything for now. We're going to create some states here. Can remove this console log. So we have a state for the cards, const cards, and set cards. I'm going to call React use state. And it's going to have a state of card type, and it's going to be an array because that's the array that we created. And we can call this create board here to create the board, but we also want to shuffle it, and that's a function where we can send in the board. So shuffle array, something like this. So this will create the board and it will shuffle the board for us. Very nice. Then we're going to have a state with the game 1 and set game 1 just to indicate that the player has won the game. So we have a way of doing that. React use state is going to be set to false first. I'm actually not going to use this one more than I'm going to console log out game 1. But I create this here so that you can see that you can do something more with this game if you want to display something when the game is won. Then we're going to have a const. We're going to have another state where we have the matched pairs and set matched pairs. And this is simply going to be the counter for all the pairs that the player has matched, so that we can keep track on when all the cards has been matched. Use state, we're going to set it to 0 initially. And then we're going to have the last state here, const clicked card. That's going to be when we first click a card, that card is going to stay flipped until we have clicked on the other card so we can match them together to see if it's a match. Otherwise, we will turn the cards back. So we have to keep this first clicked card in some state. Set clicked card. And we're going to call react.useState, and it's going to be undefined first. But this one is also going to be a card. So we have to specify the type here. It's going to be of the type undefined or card type. And that's because we initialize it with undefined. So it won't know the correct type if we don't specify that it can be of both those types. So we have the cards in the state here, so we can create our grid with the cards. So instead of start here, we're going to have curly brackets and we have the cards. We map through them. We have a card like this. We make an implicit return. And for now, we have a p tag that says card.id, for example. We save it, go back to the application to see what we got. And you can see that we have, yeah, I just typed out card ID. We can do it like this instead. Of course, save it and go back. And here we have all the cards, the ID of the cards. We haven't created our card component yet, so that's why. But you can see here that we have the grid that is also responsive, so that's super sweet. Let's go back to the code, and inside the components folder, so inside the card folder there, create component that's called card, capital C.tsx, and we can create our card component. So first we import React from React. Then we have the types, import card type from .. and .. again, setup. That's the type that we created for the cards. Then we have the styles, import. And in this file here, I have 3 different style components. I have the wrapper, I have the front image and the back image, and this shared style here, I create that with the CSS tag here that I import from the style components library. And that means that I can share this style both on the front image and the back image component. So I simply use them like this here, and it will create these styles as they are going to be the same on both the cards. Okay, so we import the wrapper, the front IMG, and the back IMG. And we're going to import it from ./card.styles. So that's everything we need. We're going to have some props for this. So I create a type for the props. Type props equal, we have the card, and that one is going to be of the card type. And we're going to have a callback on each card. So it's going to be a function that takes in a card, and it's going to be of the card type, and then it returns nothing. So we specify it to return void. So that's the props. Then we can create our card component. Const card colon. It's going to be a react.fc, a React functional component. We have the angle brackets, and we send in the props as a generic to this one. Then with the structure out the props, we have the card and the callback. And I do this pretty quickly now because I have a lot of videos on how you create these components with Typescript and stuff like that. I make an explicit return on this one because we're going to have this const handle click here. And we're going to check if the card.clickable. If we can click the card, we're going to call the callback. And we give it the card. Then we have a return statement, parenthesis, and we return the JSX. We have the wrapper. And the wrapper is going to have our onClick handler, onClick equal. We call the handle click. We don't need to send in the event or anything because we don't need that here. Then we have our front IMG. That's going to take in the flipped prop. And we get that from the card.flipped. So this is going to be true or false. And that's how we make this dynamic styling, because I have the props here. The props flipped. So if this prop flipped here, for example, on the set index, it's going to set the set index to 2 on the front image. Otherwise, it set it to 1. And also I do different transforms here, as I talked about in the beginning of this tutorial, depending on this prop. The SRC for this one, because this is a styled image, we can give it the SRC, and it's going to be the card.frontImage. And we can set an alt of card.front. And then we self-close it. Then we can copy this one, paste it in below, and we rename it to back image, back IMG. We have the flipped, it's going to be the same. And this one, the source is going to be card.back image. And then we have card-back. And the last thing we have to do here is to actually export default card. And this should be it for this component. Let's go back to the app component, and we're going to import it up here. Import card from ./components card/card. That will give us the component. So instead of this p tag here, we can use the card. Card, we have a key. As we map through stuff, we need to have a key. Card.id is going to be unique. Then we have the callback, and it's going to be handle card click camel casing, and we self-close this. We haven't created this one here, so we can do that. Const handle card click. And for now, we can console log out click. Like that. And it complains here now. Let's see what that is. Yeah, we also need to give it the card, of course. So we have a prop that's called card, and we give it the card. Save the file, go back to the application, and you can see that we have all the nice little cards here, and they are responsive and everything. So that's sweet. And when we click, we get a little console log here. So now we have to work with these cards and make sure that we can rotate them when we click them, and also that we can match the pairs. So that's what we're going to do next. So go inside the app index.tsx file again, and we have this handle card click. This is where all the logic is going to go. So first, we're going to flip the card. Flip the card. So we have the array with all the cards. So we're going to map through this array. We have the setter for these cards. So set cards. And we get the previous state. Prev. You can call it wherever you want. I like to call it prev or prev or however it's pronounced. I can actually remove the sidebar also to get a little bit more space. Then we map through all the old cards, so to say, the state before we change it. Prev.map, we have a card, an arrow function. I'm going to check for the card.id if that one equals. And we're actually going to send in the card here because in our component, the card we create, we send along the card. It's going to be of the card type. We can compare this ID of the map cards here with the card.id. And that's actually not good. We're going to name this to something else. We can name it to current clicked card instead, to be extra specific. Current clicked card.id. Otherwise, they will have the same name, and that's no good. So this is a Turner operator here where we check this. So if the clicked card equals the one that we find in the array here, we're going to do some stuff here with that card. So I create an object. I'm going to return that object. First, I spread out the card, and then I change some properties. We have the flipped. It's going to be set to true. And also clickable is going to be set to false because I don't want the player to be able to click the card when it's already flipped, when we're waiting for the user to click on the second card. So that's why. Otherwise, if we don't find the correct card in the array, we just return the card because that's not the clicked card. All right. So if we save this and go back to the application or the game and click this here, you can see that we turn the cards now and we can't click on them when they have been turned. And these ones are turned because I changed the property that's called flipped on the card itself. And that will give an indication to the card component that this one is set to true, and we will change the CSS styling depending on that prop. We can click them here and turn them, but we can't do anything else now. So that's the flipping of the card. Then, if this is the first card that is flipped, just keep it flipped. We don't do anything else because we're waiting for a user interaction for clicking the second card. If we don't have a clicked card, that's why I have this state here. If there's no card here, if it's undefined, we know that it's the first card that is clicked. So if not clicked card, then we're going to set the clicked card and we're going to give it the card and we're going to give it the current clicked card like this. But I like to also make a copy of it just in case. So I spread it out inside of curly brackets. So that's everything we have to do if it's the first card. So we just return. We don't do anything else here. So it will break this here and return. So that is if one card is clicked. Okay, so that's when the user has flipped the first card. And now we want to check if the card is matched. So now we want to have the logic when the user clicks the second card, and we're going to check if it's matched or not. And if it's not matched, we're going to turn it back after 1 second. So first, we check if it's a match. If we have from the clicked card, and remember now that this is the first card that we set here in that state. That's the first card the user clicked, the first turn, so to say. So the clicked card dot, and we have a property that's called matching card ID. And here you can see the beauty with Typescript because it's giving us all the properties. And I love that one. If that one equal the current clicked card.id, then we're going to do something because then we know that it's a match. So we set the matched pairs. We have the previous state and we have the previous state plus 1. We add it up by 1. All right. So that's the counting of the matched pairs. Then we need to set the card state. So set cards. We have the previous state, an arrow function. And I'm going to create this on its own row. Remove the sidebar to get a little bit more space here. So we map through them. we have the card, and we're going to check if the card.id equals the clicked card.id, or double pipe if the card.id equals the current clicked card.id. We have two cards now. We have the one that's in the state from the first turn, and then we have the one that the user clicked now. We have to change some properties on both of these cards now when they match. So we have a turner operator, question mark, and then I return, if this is true, I return an object. I spread out the old card, and then I change the property that's called clickable, and I set it to false. We don't want the user to be able to click on the cards when they have been matched. That's the only thing I'm going to do. Otherwise, we just return the card. Double parenthesis, I guess. No, 1. Yeah, that's because I have an S there. It should say card only. Okay, so what we're doing here is we check if we have a matching pair, and then I set the matched pairs. And then I add up 1 to the matched pairs, and then I set the cards. I look for those specific cards in this array, and I only change the clickable to false for these cards so the user can't turn them back. And then down below here, we have to return only because we don't need to do anything more here. So we return. And then if it's not a matched pair, wait 1 second and flip them back like that. So we have a set timeout. We have an inline function like this. Then we set the cards. We have the previous state just as before. And the previous state is going to be mapped, and we have a card. And yet again, we check for the card.id if that one is equal to the clicked card.id, or the card.id is equal to the current clicked card.id. Then we do something. So we're a turner operator. Yet again, we return an object. I spread out the card and I change some properties. I'm going to set the flipped to false because we're flipping them back. And then I'm going to set the clickable to true because we want the user to be able to click the cards again. And then I have a colon. So otherwise, I just return the card. Do some auto formatting and it will put it on its own row. That's nice. We also have to specify that we want this set timeout to be 1 second. You could have this in a variable, of course, high up here, and you can change it. You don't need to change it here if you want to change that timeout to something else. Before we return, we also have to set the clicked card to undefined, of course, because now we remove it so that we can have a new turn undefined. And we also need to do that below here after the timeout, just to reset everything to a new turn. Reload it. And now it works as expected. Let's just see what happens if we have a pair, and it keeps the pair. And that's sweet. So it works just nicely. Yeah, it seems to be working. We have one more thing to do, and that is to keep track of all the pairs that has been matched, so we can calculate if the game is won. You can see that I also put in some console logs here. I can remove these console logs that I put in the handle card click. So up here, we're going to create a react.useEffect of an inline function. And we have the dependency array, and this one is going to be run each time we change a matched pair. Matched pairs. So if matched pairs equals the cards.length, but we have to divide it by 2 because we're checking for pairs. So that's why we have to have half of the length of the array with the cards. So if that one is equal to that one, we know that the game is won. So for now, I'm just going to console log out game 1. And then set game 1 to true. So here you can do your own logic if you want to create a nice little button and a displaying all the cards and stuff like that, all the matching pairs. I won't do anything here now, so you have to reload the application when you have matched all the pairs. So this is just for showing you how you can expand this and make it a little bit more complete game. Save it, go back. Let's see if I can match all the cards here. You can, of course, also add in some logic if you want to show turns. Where was it? Oh, this is hard when I'm under pressure. 7 and 8. And here you can see that it says game 1. So it works. Pretty sweet. So it would be maybe a little bit relevant to also show the turns that the player has used to get this far to win the game. That's something you can do. All right, make sure to subscribe to my channel and spread the word if you like this one. And hopefully I'll see you in another one.